So we are going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the persuasive speech in order to save us a little bit of time when we get back face to face. So persuasion is obviously you're going to be taking a position and you need to argue for something, either a change of belief or a call to action, a change of action of some sort. So the definition of persuasion is the art of gaining fair and favorable consideration for your point of view. So you want to give people a new idea to think about. You don't want to offend, you don't want to be harsh or pushy. We need to be fair and ethical in handling these often very controversial topics. So a couple of examples. If we use persuasion all the time, we're exposed to it all the time. If you want to convince your parents that you should be able to go somewhere or stay out later, those are persuasion. You want to convince your teacher that you need more time on a project. You need to provide sound examples and reasons. You can't just do the toddler temperament tantrum. I'm going to hold my breath until I get my way. We don't want to be overly emotional. We need to provide logic and evidence to support our position in order to change people's minds. Another example, you want to show your friends that drinking and driving or texting and driving are wrong. You can't use too many emotional appeals. Can't use too many logical appeals. A lot of people find those boring. So there's always this balance we're trying to strike. So if we want to persuade people, we need to think about awakening a belief that you're proposing a good idea. Okay, so this is where we don't want to turn listeners off. We want to connect to them, why it's relevant, why they should care, that they, need to listen and consider your suggestions. You need to show that you have a well thought out plan of action, that there's some logic and some rationale and some thought has been putting in. It can't be a quick whim or something you've just thrown together, because the audience will feel that and people don't want to follow plans that aren't well thought out. You have to have a realistic idea, and you have to convince them it's the right thing to do, especially if there are multiple options, multiple choices. And you need to be able to push the right buttons. So you need to know your audience. What are the things that are going to persuade them? So for example, trying to persuade teenagers to not text and drive is one set of arguments and appeals. Talking to their parents would be perhaps different appeals or different kinds of data that are going to appeal more to parents. So you really have to think about what's going to resonate and move your audience. So there are 8 purposes. Obviously, you need to kind of choose one of these when you're thinking about persuasion. But again, we're exposed to persuasion all the time. Advertising is persuasion. We are constantly bombarded with ads trying to get us to buy things or believe something, change our point of view. So we're urging a choice among options. Okay, that could be, do you buy this brand or this brand? Do you go to this hotel or that hotel? Do you, choose to text and drive or not text and drive? The persuaders, the speaker, acts as an advocate for a cause or point of view. So as the speaker, you are standing up and saying, this is the best thing to do. You're going to use supporting evidence that justifies your position. This is super important. In the informative, evidence and data was part of it because you were informing us about things. But in persuasion, it's crucial that you have the right kinds of things to persuade your audience, whether that is emotional appeals or logical appeals. We'll talk about those all in a minute. The best persuasion asks audience to do something. So I could make an amazing cause that we should, claim that we should reduce plastic use. But then if I don't give you actionable steps to actually be able to make that change in your life, I've failed in the persuasion. So you verbally might say, yeah, we should reduce our use of plastics. But if I haven't told you how to do it, some steps that you as an individual could take, then I've failed. So global warming is a super controversial topic. Some people believe in it, some people don't. In that case, you would be persuading us to agree that it is happening and that it's important, or get us to believe that it isn't happening, that it is a political tactic, which some people believe. But there still should be some actionable steps. Write your congressmen, your legislators, seek out some information. If you believe it's happening, maybe you're going to link it to pollutions and plastics, and so you ask us to reduce. If it isn't happening, then you might ask us to speak out and talk to legislators. So there's different calls of action. There's different levels of calls of action too. You need to establish character and commitment of speaker through leadership. So this is kind of your credibility. It's how you use your sources. It's how you've organized your speech. We do want to use appeals to emotion, not too much, not too little, but just enough. And you might ask us to confront our obligation to believe and act in socially and morally responsible ways. So maybe your call to action is about cyberbullying, and you just appeal to the social and moral responsibilities of your audience to be better and do the right thing online. Okay. So to make a change that way. So harmful forms. Persuasion can be used for really bad means, and it can be used very badly by speakers. So evil speakers can twist evidence and disguise bad reasoning. So here's an actual historical quote from Adolf Hitler. The relation of the Jews to prostitution and even more to the white slave traffic could be studied in Vienna, when thus for the first time I recognized the Jew as the cold-hearted, shameless, and calculating director of this revolting vice traffic in the scum of the big city. A cold shudder ran down my back. Hitler has been well documented as one of, in my opinion, the most evil characters in world history, but no one can deny he was an incredibly talented public speaker. He knew how to appeal to his audience. He knew what those buttons were for the German community, and he played to them. And he could not have done what he did without winning the support of large numbers of Germans. Now, throughout time, once people realized the extent, some people did turn away from him, but he was a very, very talented public speaker, and he used it for a really evil, twisted end. And so that's where we always have to be careful. He's playing to a fear and to a popular sentiment of the time about the Jewish people. Manipulative persuasion works by suggestion, colorful images, appealing to music, attractive spokesperson. This is, excuse me, this is our advertising. If you drink this soft drink, you will be beautiful and popular and the life of the party, like they're setting up this spokesperson, rich and famous. All of those characters, when they put a star or a celebrity with a product, people associate, oh, if I use that product, I will be beautiful, rich, famous, popular, like this star. And those things are not true, but they do play on our subconscious. And those are forms of persuasion that can be really harmful. Here's a couple more. He volunteered for submarine service. This is a U.S. military campaign appealing to our patriotism, glorifying war and service, the beautiful girl, honoring his uniform, being attracted to that. That's appealing to men to sign up. Not that enlisting for our armed services is a bad thing. It is an honorable and amazing sacrifice that people make for our country, but this appeal is about getting the beautiful girl and the honor and the prestige and the status, and less about serving your country. The other ad is clearly a German ad about enlisting in the German army. We've got this even without, understanding the language. We see this image of masculinity and strength that is going to appeal to people's ego and their sense of pride and sense of who they are to get them to enlist. Neither of these ads show the darker side of war. And they're really just playing up the positive aspects to encourage enlistment in a time of war, which is different than people enlisting in non-war times. So, how do you create a good argument? Aristotle believed, and Aristotle is an ancient Greek rhetorician, and he is classic. He's the one who kind of set up a lot of public speaking formats and language and structures. So Aristotle believed there were three forms of proof in a speech. Pathos, which is our appeal to emotions. So appealing to pity, fear, anger, that emotional appeal. Ethos, I associate that with ethics. That's appeals to the speaker's competence, character. If you are a skin cancer or cancer survivor and you're talking about making life changes to prevent cancer, you have a lot of ethos. I could give you a brilliant speech about nuclear physics, but I have zero ethos to talk about that. So I'm really not going to be that effective because I can't truly talk from the heart and from experience. And logos is our appeal to logic. That is our facts and our statistics. So for you as teenagers, you guys aren't going to have a lot of ethos. Some topics you will. Some topics are very personal and you will have ethos. Your ethos is going to come from ethical use of your sources and a well-organized speech and a fair presentation of your content and of your argument. You're going to rely entirely on pathos and logos appeals. You're going to blend your emotional and logical appeals in an effective way. If emotional appeals are too heavy, then people tune out. They get emotionally overloaded and they stop listening. I think about the Humane Society ads or the Save the Feed the Children of the World ads. Sometimes those are too emotional for me and I feel manipulated and I shut down and I quit listening. But on the flip side, if you just give fact, stat, people also tune out because they're disconnected from it and they're bored and it doesn't pull on their heart at all. So again, this balance has to be struck. Modern scholars say there's one other element and it's mythos, and it's appealing to tradition and values of your culture, legends or folktales, kind of that pop culture reference, community and cultural norm references. So that's going to wrap up this video. Tune in to part 2 for the rest of the information.